Check out today's episode and learn how Ryan thinks that Internet 3.0 is going to change the world. Welcome back, everybody, to today's episode of Clicks and Bricks. My name is Ken, and we've got Ryan with us from Champion Payments. But before we bring him on, just a quick shout out to our sponsor, mygosite.com. Join today, get a 14-day free trial. It's a website builder, it's your email system, your funnel builder, everything you need to run a business, small business online, all in one platform, really, really simple to use. mygosite.com. How are you doing today, Ryan?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
Fantastic. Thank you for joining the show today. I very much appreciate it and your time. You're with Champion Payments. Can you tell us a little bit about Champion Payments and what you guys do?
Yeah, Champion Payments, we're a retail payment processor. And I say retail, that's kind of an industry term. We process payments for small, medium-sized businesses, really businesses of any size, but our target is mostly the small to medium-sized business. Not so much the micro merchant, but we're, think convenience stores, restaurants, dry cleaners, e-commerce stores that are doing over $10,000 a month, places like that.
Okay, so traditional brick and mortar building and then some e-commerce as well, right?
Absolutely, yeah, and then even attorneys and trades companies, like HVAC, electrical guys like that. So lots of different industries for sure.
If you have a need to process a credit card, you can help them out.
Pretty much, yeah.
Fantastic. Now, you're the founder of this company, is that correct?
Yeah.
And before this, you were in a completely different industry. Can you tell us a little bit about, and I don't know the word to call it, it's either motivation or possession, and I'm not sure what it is to jump out of the coziness of a job and say, you know what, I'm going to be accountable for my own future. Can you tell us a little about your story around how you made that transition from where you were being an employee to now you're the founder and the owner of a business?
Yeah, no, it is. I think the story is interesting, but it's my story, right? And I think lots of people think their story is interesting. But what I can tell you is that I used to run health clubs for a company down here in the Southeast U.S. We had 55 locations, and I had run a few different clubs for them, and they'd kind of gotten to the point where I got pretty good at the job, right? I mean, it fit me well. I liked working out. I liked the environment. I enjoyed people. I enjoyed being able to manage a group and sell something, and kind of the variety of different things that I got to do during the day. But pretty quickly, I realized that it was a young man's game. Everybody would send out the emails, on the 31st at, 10 o'clock in the evening, midnight, whatever, when everything was closed up and we hit the numbers. It was like, rah, look, Ryan and his team, made this number or whatever. And then the first would roll around. We'd basically come in, that morning, and it was, the next email comes in that basically said, what have you done for me lately? And our compensation structure was such that, we got paid for bringing in new recurring revenue, but we didn't get paid on that recurring revenue continuously. There was no residual aspect to it, which there's a lot of businesses that are like that. But somebody was making that recurring revenue. And I think that's where I really cued my brain into looking for another gig, so to speak. And the wheels started to turn. I started, doing some research online, and I found insurance, right? But the problem with insurance was, I still had that same problem of working when everybody else was playing.
Right.
And I didn't really want to do that. I didn't want to be sitting at somebody's kitchen table pitching them on life insurance at 8 o'clock at night. I wanted to be at home with my family, because in the gym industry, I was there 7, 8, 9 o'clock in the morning every day.
Right.
And then I was there all day doing a normal job, having department meetings and things like that. And then prime time for us selling new memberships and personal training and things like that was the after work time from 5 to 9. And so like I said, I was working when everybody else was playing, and that was one of the main things I didn't want to do. And then add on top of that I wanted something with a residual. So needless to say, I did some research. I found payment processing online. I signed up for some company that had some gimmicky pitch, for guys like me looking for just what they were selling. And I bombed. I did horribly. I was doing it as a side hustle. It didn't work out very well. But as I was doing that, it worked out that I met a former business partner of mine. And he had already been in the industry, probably for the better part of a decade at that point, and was starting his own company. And so I came on as just an agent, right? And so I would set him up, he would knock him down, and I kind of just learned the ropes of the payment processing business through that, I had a big network of businesses that I was, already kind of co-marketing with because of the health clubs. And so I just went and talked to them. I realized very quickly it's a very competitive industry. There's a lot of people, in the industry that are calling over the phone and stopping by, businesses to pitch them. And so it wasn't until 2 years later that I got the kick out of the nest. The health club I was working for got sold, and it got sold to a much larger company. And the only thing I can describe it as is that, anybody in the Southeast knows Publix has a grocery store down here, which is just a great grocery store, family environment, always clean, very nice. And then they know Walmart, which, depending on where you are in the country, Walmart takes on a couple different forms. And down here, it's all super Walmarts, and they're just giant. So just imagine being, working for Publix and being kind of top dog at Publix and then getting sold to Walmart. And so it was a very tough transition. I went from, Ryan Cabera, or at least what I thought was a good employee there to, employee number 0136852, And even when you would call on the phone to talk to somebody in the home office, you had to give your employee ID and all this. So it was very impersonal. It was much different. The culture was horrible. And I just said to myself, if I'm making this much residual, and keep in mind, like $100 a month or $200 a month or something like that at the time.
Right.
Putting 5% of my time into payment processing. Imagine what I could do with putting 100% of my time into it. So that was kind of a kick out of the nest. I made a kind of a pitch to like I said, my former business partner to go full time, open an office here in Tampa. And I would say the rest is history. But over the last 10 years of working in payment processing, it wasn't until about 3 years ago that I took the second kick out of the nest and started my own company. And I've been doing this for just on 3.5 years now as Champion Payments. And so we've got a team here in Tampa now, and we own our office building, and we've got a large swath of clients here in Central Florida and all over the country. And, we're kind of hit the ground running, we're loving life, so to speak.
So it absolutely is an interesting story. So I wouldn't take any credit away from yourself on that. So you're running. I'm assuming you're management at the wellness facilities, right?
Yeah, I was a general manager club, and then I managed a couple facilities as well.
Right. So GM at a multi-unit club like that is making anywhere. I'm gonna make some guesses. 35 to 65,000 a year, right? Maybe even more with bonuses potentially.
Yeah, no, I was probably making just close to almost six figures, probably 90,000.
Okay, so with bonuses and all those things, right? So you've got a lot of people that listen to this show would say, "Wow, $90,000, that's success, right?"
Yeah.
And you left that for $100 a month, right? At the time, right? Like that's where it was. So now you did execute a partnership agreement with somebody right away. Right. Did that have some guaranteed pay with it? Or was it a draw payment?
Draw. Yeah, it was draw.
So a draw payment, for those that don't know this, if you're going to go into commission, like a hardcore commission job, that means that your boss is going to let you borrow $1,000 this week, and if you don't sell enough to cover it, it's kind of endangered servants, right? It's not the greatest. It's not the most comfortable position in the world to be in, right? You really have to have some faith in yourself and your product.
It was my idea, so.
Yeah. So, but you had the foresight to say, okay, hey, I've been kind of dabbling in this, and I've made some money. Right. If I really went in, it would be better. So, was there a pretty big? I'm sorry, we didn't ask about this. Are you a family guy or are you a single guy?
Yep. No, I'm married. I've got 4 kids.
So, that had to be the conversation with the wife.
Yeah.
Right? Hey, honey, I'm gonna quit this big company job.
Yeah.
I know we're just sold, and the opportunities are huge, potentially. But I'm gonna quit that job, and I'm gonna borrow money every week to try to sell stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
My wife and I have a pretty good relationship. But to your point, she does stay home with the kids. We homeschool, so I am I'm the only breadwinner, so to speak.
Right.
So we do definitely depend on my income, and so there was some conversations there.
Right.
Hence the reason why I thought it was a good idea to take on some sort of a draw in order to get up and running to get going. But it's funny, right around that time, and maybe it's divine providence or just luck, but I ended up we had done a Dave Ramsey course at church, just kind of like prior to that. And, say what you want about Dave Ramsey, but what I can tell you is that when I was making a lot of money, I never felt like I was making a lot of money. And when I got my income cut by basically, 2/3, I felt like I had more money with a third of the money than I did with, the salary that I had. And the reason was just basic budgeting instead of just, doing whatever, all the things that you do normally, but just not having any plan whatsoever, no foresight. It definitely helped a lot in that transition. So, I mean, that's getting your budget straight before you make a move like that, to know what do you need beforehand. And having,
well, that wouldn't be any fun, Ryan.
Well, but letting your dollars be allocated. Now, it's funny because now, I'm not going to say I've passed the Dave Ramsey stage, because, I definitely have some thoughts on some specific things that he teaches, but he teaches about behavior mostly. And that budgeting and knowing where the dollars are going before the month begins is an awesome behavior to have, especially if you're going to jump out of the nest and try to go, start a business, because it's the more you know, the more you know.
Yeah, so I block out my time frames every single day, right? I know what I'm going to be doing, and for the first hour of my day is just balancing my checkbook. And my checkbook doesn't necessarily take an hour to balance every single day. Some days, payroll days and stuff like that do, but Fridays generally do, because we're writing a whole bunch of checks. But the point is that I just know my numbers, right? I know where we're at financially today. I know where we're at. I got a good idea where we're going to be tomorrow, because I can look at last month's data. So really knowing your numbers and budgeting and really being hyper aware of where your money's going and where it's coming from is wildly important, right? And when you're going to take a giant financial pay cut and taking that step backwards to take a huge leap forward, and the gratification that you get is way better than any money you'll ever have when you're successful. It's a scary thing, but if you do your budget beforehand and you know where you can cut costs and things like that, it's very important. Gary Vee always says, Americans are always broke because they're buying stupid stuff, right?
I agree with that.
Right, and it's not totally untrue, but I like my stupid stuff, right? I like my gas guzzlers and my toys and stuff. So I'm going to keep doing that. I'll just work harder and try to figure out how to make more money.
Well, and that's the other side of that is just make more money. So budgeting can also be a very sobering exercise where you realize, hey, listen, this crap does cost money. Like just your regular living day to day, having a house and a wife and 4 kids and all of those things, that costs X amount. So then to add on top of that, anything in addition costs more. And so the only answer to that budget problem is go make more money. That's it.
That is where it always ends up landing in my book, right? So I mean, there's the cutting the cost, but a lot of things like I'm a firm believer that you have to invest in yourself on a regular basis, right? You have to put some money in savings. You have to, you have to eat. And hopefully you're eating good quality, healthy foods, not just the junk you can hit for the $3 drive-through. Right. So, those things do cost a decent amount of money. So you have to be an earner at some point or at some scale. It's just a matter of what scale that needs to be for you. So, awesome. Thank you so much for that insight. It's a scary story. I think. So my wife was stay at home for when our kids were born for the first probably 6 years until both kids were in school, right? And that was a huge help for me. And I don't know, you say the breadwinner. I agree with that statement that, at that point you are the sole breadwinner, but the support that you get from your family is, I don't know how entrepreneurs do it without that, right? If they don't have support. I've talked to a couple guys and ladies that necessarily don't have the support from their spouse. And they're still doing it somehow. I don't know how they're making it through the days, but God love them for pushing through and figuring that out. So obviously, let's stop for a second. Do you have any offers or anything you would like to give the audience or talk to the audience about specifically about your business, or any kind of offer that you have, or how they would contact you?
Yeah, I would think that most of the people watching your program here are entrepreneurs, small business owners, people wanting to get into small business. And, we can do one major thing, and that's provide just a guy in the business. I think that, a lot of people have an attorney in the family, so to speak. Well, not everybody has a payment processing guy. And, credit card companies created payment processing. So it's complicated by design. And so we can really cut through a lot of that. And one of the main things that we can do for merchants today is provide them a way to eliminate all credit card processing fees and push them off to somebody else so that you're not the one that has to pay that. So that takes them from, if they're paying $2,500 a month in credit card fees today, that brings that amount down to zero from a processing standpoint. So that's very helpful, I think, for a lot of the business owners out there that are considering how are they going to budget, as we were just talking about, for expenses. Because it's so funny. Everybody thinks that business owners are rich, right? They don't realize that the minute you open a business, that like the expenses just start to pile on, man. It's just thing after thing after thing. And then, oh, by the way, just to get paid, guess what? There's another, 3% or whatever it is right off the top before the money ever makes it to you. And so we can help eliminate that, which is a fantastic thing. And then some people like that program because of the way that it takes away all the fees, obviously. But there's another program we have, which is a traditional program that we offer just a free analysis. Because the bottom line is, if you want to know, you talk to your guy in the business. Hopefully you guys can choose me. And what we can do is provide you the information. Hey, this is how we eliminate all of your processing fees, or hey, this is how we save you this much, and give them kind of a transparent way of looking at that. And we provide that as a free service.
Absolutely. So what Ryan's talking about on that first option is, let's just make believe that you have a grocery store and you do about $100,000 a month in transactions on credit cards in your store. Yeah. What's going to happen is you're going to collect all of that money, that $100,000 throughout the month. It's going to be in your bank. You're going to collect exactly what you charge the client. But at the end of the month, somewhere between $2,500 and $3,500 is going to be deducted from your account. And guess what? Unless you're really, really on your numbers, and I'm not this much on my numbers, you don't know what that number is going to be until it's taken from your account.
Right.
Because not only does Amex and Visa and MasterCard, all three have different rates. Like your SpaceX Visa has a different rate than your little puppy dog Visa, right? And they take all those guys take different little points and stuff on those transactions. So as a business owner, we're always told to know our numbers, but this is a number that you really can't know until it gets there, right? Now, it's a small percentage, 2.5 to 3.5, or I think some Amexes get all the way up to 6%, right? On some like Diner Club cards and stuff.
Amex gets a bad rap.
Okay.
Amex is actually pretty in line with any of your like Visa Business Rewards cards and things like that at this point. I think they got.
Is it Diners Club that has a really high rate? I know one of them has a super high rate.
Yeah, I mean the Diners Club. I mean, who has a Diners Club anymore, right? But yeah, no,
I don't know. I still accept them though.
Don't we all?
So, yes, everybody will take a Diners Club. You'll pay for it dearly. So right now the merchant is paying all of those fees. You're paying for the points for the customer and all those things. What Ryan's talking about is changing that so a $100 transaction would be like a $103 transaction to the end user, and then every day. You take those every day or at the end of the month?
Well, when we do this program, we take it daily because that way there's not some big lump sum coming out at the end of the month. We're collecting it. So essentially, we're collecting those funds from the end consumer through the merchant. And so we're passing through that, as you mentioned,
Oh, so they'll get the deposit of their actual amount and no fees at the end of the month.
Exactly. That's
right. So I'm sure the accountants love that. Right? Because there's no really good way to account per transaction at a granular level what transaction got what fees and tie that. I mean, you can do it, but it's...
Yeah, essentially, let's just call it an even 4%. And so if it's $100, then it turns into $104.
Right.
And so then we take the $100 and we deposit that to the merchant. We take the $4 and we keep it, and then we just do that on a daily basis.
Right. So transactions $5 to $50. That's a great tool for a merchant that has transactions in that realm.
Precisely.
Cool. And that ties into any kind of payment processor or most payment processors?
Good question. There's a couple different ways to skin that cat. In most cases, we're passing through the fee to the end customer. And so if it's on a credit card machine that we provide or on a gateway that, uses, say, just like a virtual terminal, a portal that somebody would log into and run a transaction, then we can facilitate that by just adding that on there as what we call a non-cash adjustment. However, if the customer is using invoices, say in QuickBooks or they're using a point of sale system or something like that, then we need to find some way to facilitate the pass through of the rate to that customer. And so what we would do is we would just figure out a way to pass that through to the end consumer. And then daily we're collecting that on the back end. And then we just try to true up the pennies at the end of the month. But in most cases, it's only off by like 15 cents in either direction.
And I'm making the assumption here that if you're using something like Authorize.net, you can tie into those kind of systems.
So we tie into Authorize.net, absolutely. Authorize.net is a gateway. Authorize.net in and of itself does not allow for this process.
Okay.
Which is why, say you're using a software that links to Authorize.net, and then we link to Authorize.net. So the Authorize.net is kind of in between us. Then your software would have to find some way to pass that through on each transaction, so that when we're collecting it on the back end, you're not getting screwed on the end. If that makes sense.
And without going too nerdy, that would just be a simple API call. Your application would call and say, hey, what are these fees going to be? They'd pull it back and then send the full transaction amount.
No, it'd be even simpler than that. It'd be like, if you're using a restaurant POS, just let's find a way to add a service charge on to the system of call it 4%.
Oh, so you just do a flat 4% across the board.
And we just collect that on exactly right. So that way there's no fluctuation in the rate. And then it's the same for everybody. You're not making anybody mad or playing favorites with anybody and all that. So it just works out.
So who gets the delta between the actual charge and the 4%, if there is one? Does that go back to the merchant?
That's one of the reasons why merchant processors love this program, right? Because we're partnering now with the merchant themselves, the business owner, and so we make more margin. They save way more money because they're basically paying nothing for their processing. And then the person who's mad here a lot of times is either unsuspecting, unknowing, or if they are upset about it, then they're mad at Visa and MasterCard. They're mad at the unknown person at the other end.
Yes.
And so it actually has worked out very well for the ones that do it. And keep in mind, I mean, it's not for every industry. So I think that surcharging as a whole has been done for a long time, but there's a difference between surcharging and what we're calling cash discount. Surcharging has, regulations from Visa and MasterCard, and then there's even certain states that, regulate surcharging. Whereas cash discounting is kind of a freedom of speech thing, right? Where you're saying, hey, I'm going to raise my prices by 4%, and then I'm going to give a 4% discount to anybody that wants to pay cash. So we're really running a program that incentivizes people to give you cash, which I don't know a business owner that doesn't like cash.
Right.
Although you and I were talking before we started recording about, how probably you and I both in our positions, if somebody gave me cash, I'd have to go through trouble to figure out what am I going to do with this, because
but I still like a paper check, right? And I like wires.
Yeah, because then I just take a picture with my phone, right? And it deposits into my bank account. I can't do that with cash.
Right.
So then, like you mentioned, then I end up just having it as my extra cash that I keep around.
Right. Yeah. So it doesn't happen very often for us, but it does happen. I mean, I can count on two hands in the last 20 years how many times somebody's shown up with cash in my building. But so it's not very frequently. Fantastic. So that's a fantastic offer.
But if you're a convenience store or a restaurant or someplace like that, and you have this cash discount program, you want that cash because you've already got a process within your business for handling cash. And you're excited when people pay with cash because A, there's no fees associated with that cash, and B, you do whatever you want with that cash.
Yes.
I'm not sending you a 6050W at the end of the year with your, or 1099, I'm sorry, with a list of everything that you took in credit cards and cash. I'm just sending you the list of what came in credit cards.
Absolutely. Fantastic. So moving on, obviously 4 kids, stay-at-home mom, leaving one industry, going into another temporarily, and then going on your own. There's been some times of adversity throughout this path, right? Do you have any tips or tricks that you used during this process that really helped you keep, your head on straight and moving forward and having the faith that you were going to get where you needed to get, right? So how did you overcome that, those times of extreme adversity where, not knowing where your kid's food's going to come from at some points, right? I mean, obviously you got to draw, so but that's still a pretty scary boat to be in.
Well, when I jumped into my own company, I did not have a draw. So I can say that that was probably scarier than the first time around. For whatever reason, self-doubt, I think, creeps in on everybody. But tips and tricks for somebody who's making the leap. I mean, I've got a whole swath of different things that I can tell people, but I would make sure that number one, first and foremost, you mentioned, my wife, that you have a good relationship with your spouse if you have one, and that this is something that you guys have discussed and have an understanding of or whatever, and that there is a support and understanding. Because like you mentioned, without that support, I don't know what I'd do without my wife, honestly, because
right.
it is what it is. And then, we're both, people of faith, and so that also helps a lot, depending on God and not having to do it on your own, because you really aren't doing any of this on your own anyways, whether you believe that or not. But if I had to get to more nitty gritty tactical things, I would say time management is the number one thing that, it's the toughest thing and the easiest thing all at once. So I'll give you kind of my overall idea. You go from an employee, right, to self-employed is kind of how you go when you jump up into your own business, so to speak. Because you're not, you call yourself a business owner at that point, but really you're self-employed. You're just trying to make money for yourself. It's your own thing. And some people call it solopreneur because it sounds cooler, I guess. But the bottom line is that you're in charge of everything. You're the marketing department, you're the accounting department, you're the sales department, you're also operations and fulfillment. And in my business, we do a lot of restaurants, and as such, we do a lot of restaurant point of sale systems, whether it's integrations with other POS systems or the POS systems that we sell, service, and install ourselves. And that is a labor-intensive business, and it comes with calls all hours of the day and night, especially if, doing bars and nightclubs or bars and grills even. They're open till midnight, and some places open till 2:00 in the morning, and having to answer questions or help with things, support issues, and you name it, and doing all of that yourself. And so time management is important, and understanding how to block out time and get a hold of your schedule in a way that makes you productive, because the interruptions that come with being self-employed and a solopreneur, and the fact that it's customers calling, it's not just, your assistant or your kids or whatever. I mean, this is people that want to give you money or are giving you money that are calling you, interrupting you in the middle of whatever else it is that you have going on.
Right.
If you don't have kind of the discipline to, maybe sometimes you allow calls to go back to voicemail until a certain time of the day, so that you can knock out all of the things that are important before kind of what we consider prime time, from say 9:30 or 10 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Right.
If you're doing all of your productive tasks where you have to be in front of a customer, selling, operations, whatever, during that time, and then dropping off, from 4 to 6 or whatever the rest of those times. Time management. I mean,
Absolutely.
I can't say it more than that. And go ahead.
Go ahead. So it's funny that it was just about a year ago is when I made this decision that I was going to start making videos every single day, right?
Okay.
And one of them just popped up in my timeline, one of the very first videos that I made and put out on Facebook or something. And it was talking about time management, but specifically the tip on literally schedule out 2 or 3 times a day that you're going to check email. Because you can just get lost in that inbox and spin your wheels for hours, right? So literally, I have, 30 minutes in the morning, check my email, delete all my spam, right?
Yeah.
Get to the office. I do that in the morning before I ever leave the house. Get to the office and then categorize my to-dos. What do I have to do today, right? And then I'm done with my email until 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't even check it again, right? So I'm pretty confident there's a real emergency. Somebody's going to pick up the phone and call me. They're going to come get me, right? So I kind of break those things up. Before that, I was constantly the endorphin dump of a new email, I got new work to do, I can go do it. It's really rewarding, but it steals your time if you don't literally, on something as stupid as emails, don't take the time. Schedule that out. Give yourself designated times to check your email throughout the day. You know your email volume. You can figure something out. You probably take that 1-hour task of checking your email and doing those tasks and make it a 7-hour task is what a lot of people end up doing. So
I think that's, I think that's fantastic advice.
Yeah.
Especially I like to think that I'm unique, but I know that entrepreneurs and business owners in general tend to be a little bit ADD. And with that, what you just said is so huge, because again, the distractions it's not just the distraction itself. It's not just taking the phone call, right? The problem is you take that phone call and then you take the next phone call, or you check the email or whatever. You have these 5 things going on. And the first person that called you has zero hope of ever getting what they requested that you just promised them, because you're not going to remember, right? Because you didn't write it down, didn't give it the attention or the focus that it needed at the time. And so, creating systems, I would say is a second piece, but systems for tasks and is part of that.
Well, and you're definitely not writing that blog article that you meant to do, or working on that advertisement that you were working on, right? Or working on your, you have an event next month and you're trying to, get all the creative done and invites out. You're not doing those things because you're dealing with random little random tasks that aren't really important.
Doing, and that's, what do they call them? RGAs, revenue generating activities.
Right.
In the beginning, finding a way to focus on revenue generating activities is key. I would also say that the next, after time management for you personally, the next thing to do is, as soon as you possibly can afford it, to hire somebody either part-time or full-time, whether it's a virtual assistant or an actual assistant or an operations person, and by virtual or operations, whichever one you're better at, hire the other one, so that you can take that off of your plate, because it's key. It revolutionized my life when
absolutely.
And especially the second time around. It used to be that I would try to hire people as cheap as I could get them. So I'd be hiring, 20-something-year-old kids, and I'd have to hold them by the hand, and they'd be like lemmings, right? You'd give them instructions and they march, and they do the instruction, and then as soon as they're finished or hit a roadblock on that, then they just kind of stop. And then their phone comes out, and then
stop describing my life, Ryan.
Look like this, right? And then it's not until you come back around and remember that they exist, so to speak, for they start doing something again.
Right.
Whereas the second time around, I went for more qualified people, and the first person that I hired is still with me. And let me just tell you, it's a godsend. It's the best thing that ever happened to my business, because there are things that I don't even remember how to do now, because of hiring this person. And then, the next person comes easier after that, and the next person. But in my case, being a sales and marketing oriented person, unloading some support and operations tasks and responsibilities helped a lot, because then I could go and focus on the thing we talked about at the beginning when it comes to budgeting, making more money,
right.
Bringing in more things to fill their time, and go from there. And again, it takes finding the right person. It takes networking maybe to find the right person, or putting job postings and things out there. But at the very least, I would say a virtual assistant can be key, because you've got to find a way to get things off your plate. Absolutely.
And my additional advice to that would be, you said if hire somebody that does that's good at the thing that you're not good at.
Yep.
I would also argue that you should, as soon as you can, as well, outsource the things that you just simply don't like doing.
Yeah.
You're, as a business owner, I think it's important to have an idea of every single aspect, but we're not doing this so we can be miserable, right? We're doing this so that we can be free and have the life that we want to do, and do the things that we want to do, not do an accounting job all day. Like, I still balance a checkbook every day, and when I say that, you might have an idea of like I'm an accountant and really going through it. No, I'm doing like what you would do at your house.
I imagined you with like an actual checkbook, like writing.
No, it's a spreadsheet, right? It's back and forth, but it's really a 5 or 10 minute task unless I'm writing checks that day. But I still have an accountant to like do that general accepted practices, right? That's not me. That's not my gig, right? I want to run and play with technology and talk to people. So I don't do those jobs. I pay somebody else to do them because, well, one, if you don't like doing it, you're probably not going to be good at it, right? And who wants to do business with a company that does? Man, they do okay at stuff. Right? They want you to do good at the things that you're doing. So hire the people that like that stuff.
When you're a solopreneur, in order for you to scale at any rate, splitting things up with multiple people, nobody's going to be a second you. And if they are, they're going to want a percentage of your business. And that just is what it is. So it's helpful if you can split that up into multiple people, and so you take kind of one thing at a time, so to speak. And people can wear multiple hats, but they're only going to want to wear multiple hats for so long because that's just how people are.
Right.
Think about you when you were an employee and people were dumping extra work on you. You know, you weren't like excited about it.
I'm a horrible employee. I've never been a good employee.
I can't imagine. I honestly, at this point, I cannot imagine going back to being an employee.
I try to buck the system and I try to do my things my own way. I was not built to work for somebody else.
Yeah.
It just was never in my DNA. I've been either in management or, my own company. I mean, I started my own company when I was 15 years old the first time, right? I mean, I've always had jobs as well, but
I started a t-shirt company right out of high school. I was head of student government in high school, and what I did immediately, I flipped around and I went and I sold, the t-shirts to the football team and to the
there you go,
all the different little clubs. They all had t-shirts and stuff like that. Started a t-shirt company, and that went well for a little bit, but I got bored with it.
Yeah, I've never started a t-shirt. I do sell a couple hundred t-shirts a month, but I've never had a t-shirt company, right? So, but one of my retail stores sells merchandise inside of it that sells t-shirts as well. So,
cool.
but yeah, I think I've never done I never thought I was creative enough to just do the straight t-shirts, right? But if you're doing team shirts and things like that, that makes a ton of sense, right?
Yeah, well, they hand you what they wanted to design, and I was halfway okay in Corel Draw is what we used back then because it was easy to split the colors up for screen printing.
Absolutely.
And we went to town on it, and I had a main vendor that was also pretty keen on me and helped me out a little bit too. So I was just kind of wholesaling. Their service until eventually I was able to get like a screen press, and then once that I was too much. I didn't want it. I was like, it's too much like work.
I have done that several times in my life. Like, hey, I'm going to do this to see if I can do it, and then I get it done. It's like, I'm bored. I'm going to go do something different now.
Enough of that.
That's okay. So fantastic. Yeah, I think it's in your blood. I think you can adopt this as a lifestyle if you want to. But I think really there's something in somebody's DNA that just says, hey, this is what you're going to do in life. And, I don't know. I don't necessarily believe in predetermined destinations and things like that. But, it's definitely a mindset of all the entrepreneurs that I talk to. And now I'm talking to, 2 to 5 different founders every day. And, there's a lot of similarities on the kind of person that they are. And wildly, I love it mostly because I've not met a negative entrepreneur yet. Out of all of these, right? This is episode 87, and I've not met a single negative person throughout this whole process. So, which makes me super happy.
It's the ultimate expression of freedom. It just is what it is. Somebody that's going to go and kind of do it on their own. They have to enjoy it in some way, shape, or form, or else why do it?
Right.
Now you'll find certain people's not in a good mood or whatever periodically, but like if you're interviewing an entrepreneur about like being an entrepreneur and all that, then we geek out on this. I could do this all day.
Absolutely. So, all right, moving on to our final question of the day.
Yep.
What piece of technology do you think that is in play today or going to be in play in the future that's making a significant impact on our ecosystem?
I would say 2 things. Number one, contactless payments were kind of like a novelty up until COVID. Contactless payments have just shot up. I can't tell you how often. We do some integrations with software. It's one of our main business channels is for us to find softwares that need payments attached to it, get an integration, and then when they get a customer, we get a customer. So it's a great business model for us as far as a sales channel.
Right.
But with that being said, one of the ones that we link to is medical software. And so all those offices are like, hey, we're a medical office. We need to have some sort of contactless payments. And we want it integrated with our system. And so that was actually a good low-hanging fruit way for us to get, that partnership set up. But then there's other avenues where people, you go to the auto repair shop and, whereas it used to just be they took your card and, put it in their machine. Now it's, I don't want to touch that. And there's a plexiglass screen in between you and the person that's taking your money. And it's like, for the safety of our employees and our customers, all the verbiage that everybody's using.
Right.
And so contactless payments has become a thing. Now, in my case, right, I'm the credit card guy, so you'd think I always have, everything squared away. I was a late adopter to actually being a user a consumer of contactless payments. But there was a day where I left my wallet at home and I had to figure out how I was going to work this out. And I had been playing with it.
You had to do it on the fly?
So, it did, because I had already been playing with it just for some testing in the office with some devices that we had.
Yeah.
So I had it set up, but it took me probably 5 minutes of walk around the store trying to figure out what I was going to do before I remembered that I even had it available. And I was like, wait, you guys take Apple Pay, Google Pay, and they did. And I was like, sweet, never mind. I'm right here. Bing. Yep. And then, payment went through. It was all great. And so that the contactless payments piece, I would say, is a big piece. And then the next thing that's on everybody's mind is cryptocurrency. Visa, MasterCard are working on a way to iron this whole thing out, because Visa, MasterCard don't want to get left out.
Right.
It's kind of an oxymoron. People ask me about it all the time. I get a lot of questions about cryptocurrency. And my biggest thing to them is like, one of the things you have to understand about what I do in payment processing is I am in centralized finance, and cryptocurrency is decentralized finance. And so the minute you add, us into that mix, you've now somehow centralized it. Now, with that being said, the back-end infrastructure is what's decentralized. So bringing us into the play is just the same as bringing in, some other exchange or something like that. But the problem with all of these exchanges is the amount of time it takes to approve a transaction and then for that transfer to happen. So like if you've ever tried to transfer Bitcoin from one person to another, it could be 2-3 days before you actually see that pop up in your wallet. And that's a real problem. And so whenever you're, and again, that's maybe an extreme case when it's heavy.
Yeah, I think that there is a weird case like that. And cryptocurrency is right up my alley, right? I could talk about crypto for days, if not years. So if you're a brand new Bitcoin user and you're just now installing your first wallet, it takes 2 or 3 days for that wallet to even get synced. Right.
Correct.
So
but the reason for that is we're not going to get into cryptocurrency technical stuff, but just suffice it to say that's an infrastructure issue on Bitcoin's network itself, right? Which is the size of the block on the blockchain, how that works. But
correct.
The adding in a way to process that, the issue is on the exchange and who gets the money. So now you're going to have some development where you can take all of these different cryptocurrencies and then they're going to have to unify some sort of a platform, because that's essentially what happens with credit card processing. The reason that we exist is because there's 4 main credit card brands, right? Visa, MasterCard, Discover, and Amex.
Right.
Add on, like you mentioned, Diners Club and JCB, which is the Japanese ones, Chinese ones, all that. But then you throw on in here in the US, we have 15 debit networks. And so any of those people need to be able to walk into a store and pay. And so what we do is we consolidate all that into a one channel, so that when it comes to us, then we're doing all of the air traffic control, pointing everybody in the right direction, guiding it to the lowest cost place for that to get processed, and then getting a piece of the action along the way for our trouble, right? So that's why a processor exists. There's already thousands of different coins in cryptocurrency.
Right. And hundreds of new every single day.
Every day.
And if you throw NFTs on top of that, tens of thousands of new digital assets being published every single day.
Exactly right. So then, so then you throw into all that into this mix, and I think you'll start to see less digital currencies, and you'll see more blockchain platforms for other purposes, more towards the Web 3.0 experience than anything else, which goes into what you're kind of alluding to there.
Right.
But as far as payment processing, at some point, some government is going to adopt, a blockchain, and then all bets are off at that point.
El Salvador already has, right? El Salvador, if you live in if you're a merchant in El Salvador, you have to accept Bitcoin. It's the law now in El Salvador.
Interesting.
So yes.
Now again, that's Bitcoin, and so a lot of people are still going in. Like the convenient way right now for somebody to pay with a cryptocurrency is that their crypto exchange, crypto.com, Coinbase.
There's no good way at a merchant.
There isn't. But what they do is they issue them a credit card that's connected. So there's an exchange happening on the back end into US dollars, and the merchant still gets US dollars. You can eliminate some of that exchange fee instead of exchanging twice, just exchanging once, when they figure out how to streamline all this process. And it's coming. How that technology is going to look in 10 years, I'm very
wildly complex.
Oh yeah.
Right. So and I'm not going to go too deep into this, but I think the popular opinions, or the popular ones, are going to be actually crypto USD loans towards your credit card, right? So you have your crypto holdings, and you get a credit card, and you literally take loan cash advances on that, so you're not converting your tokens into US dollar, because every time you do that, it's a taxable event. Yeah. And if you're using crypto as a means of purchasing assets in the real world, and you're doing a real-time transaction US dollar to do that trade, it's a tax nightmare for anybody. So the popular ones are going to be, you get the credit card, when you spend money, you're taking a micro loan on that, and then you're backing that micro loan with your cryptocurrency.
Yeah. Well,
so you're not doing
ultimately
that
what ends up
transactional
happening is
time.
that's just a credit card. That's just a secured credit card that's secured by crypto, right? So
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that that might be the short-term answer. I think the long-term play is when we actually are using some sort of digital currency. And that digital currency, if the governments of the world and the people that go to war for this kind of stuff have anything to say about it, it'll be some sort of a centralized system, because that's the only way that they can control it. Decentralized finance is a real
disruptor.
It is a true disrupt. I mean, there's things that are called disruptors, and then there's decentralized finance.
And that's disrupting governments. It's disrupting banks. It's disrupting everything, right? So for cryptocurrency to have its real full blossoming moment would be really anarchy.
Right. Well,
it's kind of what we're talking about long term. If the Bitcoin boys were to have their way with no obstructions, right? I'm sure it'll be somewhere between anarchy and capitalism. I'm not sure where we're going to land, but the way that this country...
I'm hoping for capitalism, because...
I think we like to overcorrect in our country, and we keep voting for far left and far right and going way back and forth either side. So gosh only knows what's going to happen here. But it's definitely fun to think about. I love cryptocurrency. I love the fact that you mentioned the Internet 3.0, which I think is the metaverses and augmented reality. I'm not a huge fan of virtual reality. I really like augmented reality. I think full immersion is just... the human brain is not ready for that.
I think about that, and I was watching a movie with my kids. I can't remember what they're on, like some ship. Oh, I think it was what is that movie with the little robot?
Is it Wall-E?
Wall-E.
Wall-E, yeah.
All these people are on this thing, and they're all in virtual reality, and they're all just like real chunky, just floating around on these little things,
Yeah.
That's what I imagine the metaverse ends up at, and I agree.
I'm hoping that it's some kind of augmented real life experience with some like Terminator vision is what I'm hoping, but we'll see what happens. It is definitely fun to think about. We definitely know, the thing that I know for sure is that change is on the horizon, right? We're going to get to see another, if you were lucky enough to be, old enough in the late 90s and early 2000s, you got to see the dot-com boom. This boom, and even, you got to see the crypto boom as well. Hopefully you didn't get destroyed in it like I did. And now you got this metaverse Web 3.0 boom that's getting ready to happen. And there's just a ton of opportunity out there for anybody that wants to jump in there and start learning.
The thing about it is it's all decentralized, right? So that's the whole point of the Web 3.0 is it's decentralized, just like blockchain is. And what happens when you do that is now, if somebody doesn't like you, they can't shut you down.
Right.
I mean, it's which has its pros and cons. I mean,
and just to wrap this up, I'm going to get too far. If you say decentralized, you're saying like who are you pissing off? You're pissing off Google and Amazon and the banks and the governments and you're making the big boys mad, right? And they're going to try to figure out a way to control this whole thing. So anyway, thank you so much, Ryan, for your time today. I really had a great time. Before we go, do you have anything that you would like to talk to the audience about? One last bit of information, tips, tricks, anything you'd like to share?
No, I just hope they go for it, because I think there's people watching that are probably sitting on the fence about whether or not they should go for it, and I think they should go for it.
Absolutely. I come from a family where my mom and dad every week would say, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, and they never, not until my father was 2 years before he passed away did he get off his ass and start his business, and I think it was his happiest 2 years of his life before he passed away. But absolutely, get up, just go, just start doing it, right? You don't need anybody's permission, just start, right? Just go. It'll be okay, right? You'll figure out a path, I promise. Thanks again, Ryan, for your time.
You too.
That's it for today's show today, folks. Thank you for joining us again. Today's show is brought to you by MyGoSite, one platform for your CMS, for your email management, for your website building, and your funnel building, all in one place. 14-day free trial. That's it for today, folks. Get to work.